Hello and welcome to Coach Unblocked, a part of the Unblocked Podcast Network. We're so thrilled tonight to have special guest Bill Smith, who I coached against in 1993, I believe, when he was at Muscle Shoals High School and I was at Coffee High School, 30 years ago, I believe, and is currently the head football coach and athletic director at Talladega High School in Talladega, Alabama. Coach Smith, Bill, welcome to the show. Appreciate you coming on.
Thank you, Coach Riley. I appreciate it. Great to be here.
You know, you played at Alabama, right?
Well, I was a punter at Alabama. I guess that's sort of playing.
That counts. No, Coach Stallings?
No, Bill Curry was my guy.
Bill Curry, okay. Bill Curry, okay.
Love me some Bill Curry.
Now, were you there during the time when Rick Rhodes came through?
I was there with Coach Rhodes. Yes, okay. He was my punter. He was my punter coach.
Okay. So when Rick left Southern Illinois and we all got fired, he came and coached you.
That's right.
I did not know that. That's a bit of information I wasn't aware of. So now so tell me about where you grew up. You know, where'd you come from? Where'd you live? Tell your brothers, sisters. Tell me about Bill as a person.
Okay. My dad was a coach. He started out as a head football coach when he was about 25 years old at Phil Campbell High School.
Okay.
And I was a itty bit. Well, I wasn't even born when the first year he took over, but he was there for 2 years. Then he went to Muscle Shoals. So my earliest memories of football was being carrying out water during timeouts with those old trays.
Oh yeah,
that had cups all in them, and I was 6, 7 years old, and it was all I could do. By the time that I carried the cups out to the middle of the field, most of the water had spilled out. I remember that. But I was there with him. He ended up he got caught up in some political stuff at Muscle Shoals, and it was very political, especially back in the 70s. He took a job in Franklin County, and then I transferred at the end of my 8th grade year to his alma mater and my mom's alma mater to Russellville.
Okay.
And so that's when I ended up at Russellville 9 through 12th grade, and played on some good teams at Russellville.
Sure, and people that don't know Alabama high school football, and especially from back in that era all the way through some in the 90s, realize what a great football program Russellville High School has had over the years, and a tremendous winning tradition, and or that Chucky Mullins is from Russellville High School, and so a lot of things. A lot of great football, my first college football game that I ever started in was played in Russellville High School Stadium.
Yes, UNA. I've told people that, Coach.
We played Central Florida there, and my first start. So,
Russellville Stadium was built 30, 40 years ago, and I can't imagine in 1970, 65, 70, on-campus stadium that seats maybe 8,500.
Right.
It still looks great, Coach. I can send you pictures of it right now. Of course, it's got a jumbotron and a miniature Mississippi State field house that was funded by taxpayer money.
All right.
I'll tell you that off the air how that was funded. But I can remember being 7th, 8th grader, and my dad taking me to a Russellville game that was a UNA game that was played at Russellville High School. But my junior year, Coach, I tell this to kids all the time. We two platoon, which was very unusual for 83, and we gave up 47 points in 11 games. Went 9-2, didn't make the playoffs. 9-2, gave up 47 points. We got beat by Brooks 3-0 in a rainstorm. They crossed the 50-yard line one time, and that was on a muff punt. And then we got beat by a super talented Colbert County team 14-12. And you know how small the Colbert County field house is.
Right.
Ray Perkins, um, um, gosh, my blood sugar's a little low. Auburn head coach,
Bad dive.
Pat Dye, Ray Perkins, and the head coach at Ole Miss, Billy.
Oh yeah, I know you're talking about. I can see it. I can see his face right now.
They
It'll
were
come to
all
me. Billy Brewer.
Billy
Billy
Brewer.
Brewer. Yeah.
They were all in the press box at Colbert County watching that game, and 14-12. And we we uh we 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 had a bad snap on a extra point and missed a 2-point conversion. They made it. They beat us 14-12, and 47 points in 11 games, did make the playoffs. But anyway, I had I was an option quarterback, as you were, and growing up, and because of that, the only
Split back
D1
veer. Split back
do what
veer.
now?
Were y'all
Yeah,
split back veer?
split back veer.
You know,
Now,
you were
I say
either.
this: I was not very good at split back veer. If I could have run inside veer, especially if I could have run midline,
Right.
Coach, if I could have run midline, or if I could have run the veers that we're running now,
Right.
in the option game,
Sure.
I could have been a contender, because I had decent speed, and the only D1 offer I had was Army Academy, and I was a verbal commit for 3 or 4 weeks to Army, and then I chickened out at the last second, and end up walking on at Alabama. I had a partial to UNA, a partial to Jacksonville State. As much of our kids are these days, I thought I was much better than UNA or Jacksonville State.
Right.
And when I got to Alabama, I realized that I was not.
Yeah. And I used to, 1 year at Robertsdale many moons ago, I was getting a little gang in about kids not getting scholarship offers, and and at that time the world was very small in Robertsdale, right. Alabama,
yes.
in mid-90s. I mean, you didn't know.
It was small everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. The world was small, and so I loaded them up on 2 buses and took them to Senior Bowl practice, and had them. And they let us come right out on the field and be there. And I still remember one of our kids going, "Holy cow, look at the size of that guy." And I looked over and said, "Buddy, those are the punters." I mean, the players hadn't even come out yet, and it made them sort of, oh my gosh. I mean, it's not the same as it looks on TV. Because everybody's the same size on TV. I mean, the coaches are all monsters too. And let's go back to being a split back veer guy now. So if in that era of 70s and early 80s, most everybody in the state was either split back veer or wishbone, because that's what Auburn and Alabama had been doing in that window of time. And that's where high school coaches went to clinic. You either went to Alabama or you went to Auburn. And if you went to Alabama, you ran the wishbone. If you went to Auburn, you ran the split back veer. And so I was a split back veer high school quarterback too, because our staff had gone to Auburn and learned it down there when Charlie Trotman was playing quarterback at Auburn and all that stuff. So yeah, and I mean, and they never could explain to me why we couldn't handle the scrape linebacker on the outside veer. When I'd pull it and I'd get hit in the ear hole by the scrape backer in an odd front, and why we don't do any, and the hard dive is the only answer we have for that. You need more answers than that. The guy's not going to be unconscious. And then we learned about the wishbone, and you got an extra guy who can now block that guy, and life got a little better. And I'm with you. The midline changed the world at that time. Yeah. I remember I knew that I wanted to learn the midline when I spoke to 2 people. One, I was in Tuscaloosa working at Central Tuscaloosa, and Homer Smith was there working with our quarterbacks and doing some stuff. And I got to spend a summertime with Homer Smith out on our field and just pick his brain. And he said, the best football play invented in the last 25 years, Coach, is the midline. You need to put it in. Yes, sir. And then the other person was Jerry DiNardo. And when he was had just gotten fired at LSU. We went and visited them because we wanted to talk to him about the eye bone, the stack eye, the things that they had been doing at Vanderbilt, and how they had put their stuff together. And he said two things, and I told him at LSU. One is, I wish I had run midline at Vandy. Two is, do not sign a contract with any team that runs it. That's the only thing only rule I have as far as athletic director. We are not playing somebody who runs the midline triple option. Not going to deal with it. And I said, well, that tells me I need to put this sucker in. And then we ran it every way known to man for a long time. And whether it was midline downhill, midline cross spacing, read the nose, everything you could possibly do. I mean, that became sort of my play. I'm going to be really good at running this play and finding a way to attack people with it. You're exactly right. I mean, midline was a game changer, and it would have been a game changer for you if you'd have just been born a little later, as far as a player. So now let's talk about your faith. At what point in time when did you become a Christian? When did it, how did that come about, and how has that impacted your coaching?
Yeah. Well, I became a Christian at 9 years old.
Okay.
I was at a youth camp in Tishomingo, Mississippi, on a Tuesday night campfire service. God revealed my sinfulness to me as a 9-year-old boy. And I got radically saved at that time. Right. And so, we spent some time at First Baptist Church in Muscle Shoals together. And but that was my home church. I was involved in youth ministry, taught Sunday school. And then I can remember the first time that peer pressure ever started getting to me. It's the 8th grade at Muscle Shoals. And all of my friends seemed like they changed overnight from the 7th grade to the 8th grade.
Puberty does that to kids. Yeah. No question.
And I can remember being in the most worthless class, study hall. In the 8th grade, we did absolutely nothing. We were in the cafeteria for about an hour. And I can remember a kid asking me, had I ever had sex in the 8th grade? And so the peer pressure, even in the early 80s. Right. And imagine what it is now with social media.
I know.
Things.
No. Now, were you the oldest in your family?
Yes, I have a younger sister. My dad had gotten a job offer to go to Russellville as like a coordinator and head baseball coach the year before, and by Wayne Ray, and looked at the supplements. And at that time, Russellville supplements were not even close to Muscle Shoals supplements. Right. And my dad said, I'll take like a $15 raise to coach 2 sports. And I'm not even, at that point, he wasn't even coaching the sport. He had gotten out of it. And so, but anyway, and so he talked to us about moving my 8th grade year, and my sister, or 7th grade year, my sister and I just cried and cried. We're not going to move. And then the peer pressure and everything, I thought things would change. Now, I had played baseball. I had relatives at Russellville. Anyway, the next year when my dad got another offer and he talked to us about going, I said, let's go. Right. Because I thought peer pressure would cease.
Gotcha.
I was wrong.
Right. Sure.
I was wrong. Now, fast forward to my freshman year at Alabama, I can remember a junior starter from Murphy High School. I won't mention his name. I remember him saying, Bill, I bet you bagged a bunch of girls. And I said, no, I'm a virgin. And so a lot happened for me to be able to, at the University of Alabama, say, I'm a Christian and I'm a virgin. Right. And but anyway, got
And
involved.
I think the reason I asked about being the oldest child, I think that, I know my experience, my first questions about sex were in the 8th grade also.
Yes,
And I was the oldest. But the people that were around me that were asking those questions, they were not the oldest. They had brothers and sisters who were older, and they
that's a
had
good
seen
point.
more, and they had been
Mhm.
exposed to more. And I was just, I mean, they were saying things around me that like, what are y'all talking about? I mean, holy cow! I'm just overwhelmed with it,
Yeah,
and especially for me, I went from Graysville Elementary Middle School, which had two 8th grade classes of about 20 kids, to Bottenfield Junior High in the 9th grade
right,
that had 20 9th grade classes, and
right,
people are everywhere,
right,
and just and they live different lifestyles. The same thing with the difference in Russellville or Muscle Shoals. I mean,
right.
they had more money, they had more more access to things that I didn't even know existed, and
Right.
to sort. I mean, we all, to some degree, have to sort through that at that age, and but I think being the oldest child in the family carries a whole different whole different view than if you had a brother or sister that sort of has walked that path for you ahead of you. So anyhow,
Agreed. Agreed. So anyway, I end up I played football, track, basketball at Russellville. Enjoyed them. Uh, I encourage every family to encourage their son or daughter to be multiple sport athletes. Um, when I've been an athletic director at different places, I tell my head coaches, one of the few things that I'll just fire you from is if I find out that you've told kids they've got to specialize and they can't play another sport.
right.
And I believe in that because when I was in track, I was 100% track and football. You know,
Right.
I do think that things have changed since you and I played, where you've got to be involved in a year-long, systematic strength and conditioning
Right.
program.
I agree.
And so everywhere I've interviewed as a head coach since 2009, I tell them the only thing that I insist in is that all of our athletes are involved in a systematic, smart strength and conditioning program year round, and that we're able to share our athletes.
Right. Right.
And
And exactly. And I think one of the balancing things there is to, if you've got a kid who's a football player who's in that last block of the day, but he's now playing another sport, to help them understand that he needs to lift weights and that other sport needs to practice after school. It's like football practices after school.
right,
And to maintain the integrity of the strength program and the development of the strength program, and not go from, November the 3rd to February without lifting a weight because you're that 6'2" power forward on the basketball team.
yes,
And you come back and you're skinny as a rail.
yeah,
So,
and
that's
it
hard to do.
it absolutely is. And so, but I also had to adjust. My first head coaching job was at Crossville High School.
Mm-hmm.
Most of my head coaching jobs that I've gotten have been because nobody else would take them.
Right. Yeah, man. I went back and made sure I looked at your on ahsfhs.org and looked at your resume of where you had been
You can't
and
lie about your resume anymore.
no, it's there. I mean, it's there, and I know how many games you won, how many games you lost, if it's accurate, and mine's on there too.
Yeah.
And and so
My dad is on there from when he was at 2 years at Phil Campbell in
and
the
they do a
60s.
great job with that side. They're awesome with how accurate they are. But yeah, I mean, I looked, I said, "Hey, Bernie, other than the Shades Valley, when at the time you took the Shades Valley job, everything else is rebuild, redo, start
Yeah.
over, or has just never won at all,
Right.
or it's been generations since you've won. I mean,
Yeah.
it's been or since they've won, it's been a
Yeah.
long time. So you've had some tough jobs, ain't no doubt. Woo, mercy.
The Crossville doesn't even have a varsity football program now. which is sad. But I enjoyed it though, Coach. I enjoyed my time there. The best coaching job I've ever done was my second year at Crossville. We had gone 3-7 my first year. We were 3A.
Right.
Then we went 4A by about 4 Hispanic students.
Right.
At Crossville. We went 4A. And I can remember being in the cafeteria when the local newspaper, DeKalb Examiner, DeKalb,
Right.
they called me and they said, Coach, what do you think about your new region? And I said, I haven't seen it yet. Who is it? Okay. All right. It was Cherokee County. They were 1 year removed from a state championship.
Mm-hmm.
It was Gunnersville, 2 years removed from a state championship. And it was North Jackson, who back in the early 2000s, for 2 decades, they were 10, right. 11, 12 win team.
Right.
So we're now in that region. And so we went 6-4 that year. The last winning season they've had, or maybe ever will have.
Right.
And
right.
We won our first game. The second game was against Gunnersville. Gunnersville and Crossville had not played in 20 years. And we muffed a punt. Well, they jumped on us 17-0.
Mm-hmm.
Then we scored 17 unanswered in the second half. They didn't get a first down. And I kicked field. I had a really good field goal kicker. I kicked a couple of field goals that game where we had 4th and goal from the 3.
Mm-hmm.
And I had patience because we were playing so good. Should have gone for it. We ended up muffing a punt. They kicked a 39-yard field goal with no time on the clock to beat us 20-7.
Mm.
And if we'd have beat Gunnersville, that may have been the best win I've ever had.
Right. Right.
And,
I understand.
And we ended up, my last game that second year was the Battle of Skirm Creek against Geraldine. I think it's the longest running. Well, they don't play varsity this year.
But it was at that time. Right.
It was, I think, the longest running rivalry, Geraldine and Crossville. We led the whole game. Then we muffed a couple of kick returns and found ourselves down 7 points. They had the ball at the 5-yard line going in to go up 2 touchdowns, 4 minutes to go. They fumbled at the 4. We went on a 22-play, 96-yard drive, scored with about 10 seconds left, went for 2, got it, and beat them 43-42.
Goodness.
And I'm telling you, the place, came on the field. The Crossville was at our place, and they came on the field. 15 minutes later, and this is in 2010, the dads come out on the field with the seniors, and they light up stogies.
That's awesome.
Hey, the principal was out there, and so I shook his hand, hugged him, and I said, "I'm going to ease out of here." He said, "You go home, Coach. You've done an excellent job." And we ended up getting turned in by Geraldine, because they took pictures of the dads and the seniors with the stogies.
Mm-hmm.
We took a $300 fine, something like that. And so it was a few days later. We didn't make the playoffs. And my principal, I'm thinking he's going to ring me out. Right. He said that was the best $300 fine we've ever.
I tell you what, and there ain't many principals like that out there no more. I mean, they just ain't. I mean, and we could chase that rabbit for a long time. Oh. Maybe that'll be enough. Maybe down the road when we're not doing the introductory stuff, we'll go back and chase those rabbits about high school football and how it's changed over the years. Let's talk about, we've got a few minutes left here. Let's talk about your wife. I mean, great coaches have great partners.
Yes.
And I have one, and I know you have one. Talk about how y'all met, where y'all met, y'all's relationship, y'all's love, and her love for coaching, obviously, and young people too. Tell us about her.
This is the best story I can tell. Okay. I was I had been a bachelor all my life. I had been engaged to a girl when I was at Muscle Shoals, and it didn't end well.
Mm-hmm.
And I was hurt, and so I married football.
Mm-hmm.
Football was my wife.
Sure.
Uh, uh, Now, for years, I was a coordinator, and I didn't even want to be a head coach.
Mm-hmm.
So, from the time that Perry Swindle hired me in 2000, when I got fired at Muscle Shoals, whole new story. 2000, we went Mike Leach, Hal Mummy
Right.
stuff, and
Mm-hmm.
I had a blast with it. Now, it was easy because nobody was doing it.
Sure.
Hoover and a couple of teams were doing it in 99, 2000, but
Right.
it was like taking candy from a baby.
Mm-hmm.
So nobody know how to defend it at the time. Now everybody's doing it. I want to go do what you were doing at Davidson.
Do something different. Sure.
That's a whole new story. All right, now, so fast forward, I end up going to South Georgia. I got a high-paying job at a big school at Lee County, Georgia. We broke records there, led the state of Georgia in yards per game, points per game. Then my dad said, "Son, what are you going to do?" "What do you mean, Dad?" He said, "Well, you got 12 years in Alabama. Now you got 3 years in Georgia. You either need to stay in Georgia or come back to Alabama." So anyway, fast forward several places, get my first head coaching job, end up going from Crossville to Shades Valley. Total different demographics.
Sure.
4A to a large 6A. And it was my second year there at Shades Valley. It was over Memorial Day weekend. I was broken. And my wife was coming off of a bad divorce. I had never been married. She didn't ever want to get married again.
Mm-hmm.
She took an apartment place at the very back of the apartment. She just wanted to be alone.
Right.
So I ended up meeting her at the pool on Memorial Day weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And I was an idiot. It took 2 days of me seeing her at the pool. On Sunday, after that first Saturday, I ended up saying, "Hey, what's your name?"
Right.
And that's a famous line that we have today. "Hey, what's your name?" So I find out, she finds out I went to Alabama, played, it was punter there. I find out that she was an Auburn Tigerette and that she went to Minor High School.
Mm-hmm.
And then,
My
so
alma mater, by the way. Okay, that's significant. Yes.
yeah, it really is. Because anyway, so I mean, she knows football. I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, holy crap. Her dad had recruited for Auburn back in the 70s when businessmen could recruit and were part of the extended staff.
Right.
I mean, almost like a GA.
Right.
So he met in staff meetings and stuff. He was there I mean, that's crazy, isn't it?
It is.
And so he worked at Alabama Steel. And so, but we ended up, we hit it. I asked her to dinner, and I knew she was the one, really. She knew I was the one from very early on.
Mm-hmm.
And I fought it because I had been in some bad relationships that didn't work, and I wanted children.
Mm-hmm.
And we'd been dating for about 6 months, and she had to medically had to have a hysterectomy.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, this is more than your audience or you probably want to know, but I was close to bailing on her.
Right.
True story. Now this gets really to the good part. We had dated a full year. We pretty much knew that we were going to be married, but I was still fighting it because I wanted children.
Mm-hmm.
So she was a counselor at Hewitt Trustville, and she was also a youth minister, a children's minister at an Episcopal church. And so she took off to come to Father's Day service with me at Church of the Highlands.
Mm-hmm.
So she was sitting with me at Church of the Highlands, and we finished the worship part, and then the pastor asked all the dads to stand up. I didn't stand up, and she elbowed me, and she said, "You stand up because you are father." I said, "Okay, baby, I'll stand up." So I stood up, and then Pastor Chris starts praying. And then in the middle of his prayer, he said, "God is telling me that there's a coach here that's really down today because he has no natural children. God wants you to know," and I'm starting to have goosebumps right now.
Yeah, sure.
God wants you to know that you have hundreds, if not thousands, of spiritual children, and you are a father.
Amen. There you go.
True story.
Mm-hmm.
True story. I actually ended up relaying that to Pastor Chris Hodges a year or two later, and he looked very surprised when he saw my face. So I don't even think he saw a face when God told him to tell him that.
Sure.
That was the impetus, along with me being fired at Shades Valley after going 10-2 and 9-3,
Right.
shook me up, and I finally proposed to her.
Yeah,
So,
and fortunately, she said yes. And I enjoy following y'all on social
oh yeah,
media. Y'all are so positive, so uplifting, and that's why I wanted to have you on, because everything y'all put out there is biblical. It's faith based. It's positive. It's uplifting. It's and there's a small pocket of that on Twitter. Most of it's guys attacking people, and because you get more clicks when you do stuff like that. And good, bad, or ugly.
that's correct.
There's a reason for that, and that they do that, and I enjoy it. I enjoy what I may not like every bit of it, but I see everything you post every day. I may not go in there and click the button every time, but I
Well,
do see it. And
she's been my water girl at Huffman, and she's my water girl at Talladega, and we cannot find a trainer.
right.
So the kids are coming to her about, Miss Ann, what's wrong with my arm? And
That's I understand. Well, partner, we're going to have to go. We're running out of time. My light's flashing at me. I'm going to get you back on here and talk some more. And
I'd
thanks
love
so
to.
much. God bless you. Love you. Good luck the rest of the way. Keep impacting the world. Okay.
Coach Riley, thank you for having me on.
Yes, sir. Thank you.